For those of you who have been around my channel for a little bit, you'll know we've done a series of really difficult Pokemon challenge runs in the past, but typically they've involved using a singular Pokemon to beat the game. A few weeks ago, an idea dawned on me. What if we could make the game just as difficult as solo runs, but with a full team? What if I also streamed the playthrough on my Twitch channel so the community could come along with the adventure? I felt like that could be a lot of fun, so we decided to take on Pokemon FireRed with Hardcore Nuzlocke rules to see if we could beat the challenge. Due to the popularity of certain Nuzlocke videos like those from Jaden Animations, I feel like most people know what a Nuzlocke is by now. Basically, it's a type of playthrough using self-imposed rules to make the game harder, usually involving two fundamental rules. If a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead and must be permanently boxed or released, and only the first Pokemon encountered in each route or area can be caught, usually excluding Legendaries. Oh, and you usually have to nickname your Pokemon just so that the personal connection makes it that much harder when they die. However, there are a few additional rules that can be added to make the run truly hardcore. Namely, no items can be used in battle, held items are allowed though, party Pokemon levels are limited to the highest level Pokemon of the next gym leader or Elite Four member, and finally, the battle mode must be put on set at all times. This means that instead of being able to switch Pokemon when the opposing trainer sends a new Pokemon in, their Pokemon will come in whether you're ready or not. These additional rules make a playthrough much more challenging by getting rid of things that otherwise might make a run easier, such as healing or stat boosting items, over-leveling, and preemptive switching to something that you know can handle whatever Pokemon is being sent out. But with that said, let's get into it. My name is Soul Spectre and welcome to the FireRed Hardcore Nuzlocke. After naming our rival Gym Bob, what an absolute classic, I decided to choose Bulbasaur as our starter. Not only is it my favorite Kanto starter, but I also feel he'll be useful early game as things can get crazy real quickly with the first two gym leaders if you don't get the right encounters. Bulbasaur's line definitely isn't quite as useful with subsequent gym leaders, but I figure by then hopefully we'll have some good Pokemon that'll pull us through. Also, yes, his name is Bulbasaur. You can blame Twitch chat for that one. The first rival fight is always nerve-wracking in a Nuzlocke as you can very well lose the run right away, but thankfully Bulbasaur pulls through with just 4 HP remaining to give us our first win. After delivering Oak's parcel, we get some Pokeballs, meaning encounters have officially begun. Right away on Route 1 we catch a Pidgey, which we nicknamed Tweety. I've been trying to curb my Twitter use recently, so having a constant reminder of my addiction can only be a good thing. From Viridian City, we can actually go west to Route 22 for another encounter, and I was really hoping for a Mankey here, and not only did the game answer our call with a Mankey we called Kong, but it also turned out to have a perfect nature, Adamant. Moving north to Route 2, we catch a Rattata, which we call Lil Stu, because, well, Stuart Little is too mainstream. Amazingly, Rattata actually has the Guts ability which raises its attack by 50% if it has a status condition, which I feel like we could possibly abuse at some point, although the setup might be a bit difficult. Our Viridian Forest encounter ends up being a Weedle, which isn't fantastic. I was really hoping for a Pikachu, but at least it will evolve really early. We name it Vespiking and make our way through Viridian Forest with a few close calls due to poison, but thankfully we had prepared in advance with antidotes since poison can kill your Pokemon merely from walking in early gen games. While grinding for Brock's gym, our Weedle evolves into Kakuna, and we get all of our Pokemon besides Kakuna up to level 10, which I'm thinking will be sufficient. Against Brock, I decide to send out Mankey first to keep Bulbasaur in the reserves, and since he recently learned Low Kick, we're able to do a great job against Geodude, only being brought to about half health. Brock's Onyx comes in and I switch into Bulbasaur, who of course has more health. Amazingly enough, Onyx misses its Rock Tomb, our Vine Whip does massive damage since all grass moves are of course special in this game, we get crit from Tackle, and then we're able to take him out on the second attack to win our first gym badge. Between a lucky miss, being fortunate enough to find a Mankey, and of course choosing Bulbasaur as our starter, we made pretty quick work of Brock's gym. While grinding through the trainers on Route 3, Kakuna evolves into Beedrill, and we also get an incredible new encounter, a Nidoran male, which is exactly what I was hoping for, but we only had a 15% chance to get. We name him Duke, since he'll be a king one day after all, and make our way through the rest of Route 3 towards Mount Moon. Mount Moon itself is a tricky place in terms of encounters, as the encounters that we might want, Clefairy and Geodude, are more common on the lower floors, which we could very well use repels to get to without activating any other encounters. However, I decide against that, thinking it would be tedious and risky given our low number of repels, and luckily enough, we get a Geodude as our first encounter, which we catch and name Roxanne. And we box Beedrill since Geodude is a better option at this point. Toward the end of Mount Moon, we encounter a Rocket Grunt, and my first reaction was, I don't know if we're quite ready for this. I think I cursed us. During this battle, we had a Rattata versus Rattata showdown, and here I figured the most that it would have is Quick Attack, since that was our best move at just one level lower, and we can 3-hit KO it with our Quick Attack since it just used Tail Whip on the first turn. But then, somehow, it turns out it had Hyper Fang of all things, which takes out Lil Stu in one hit. Apparently it learns it right at level 13. Our first death, and a very painful one since Guts Rattata is quite useful and hard to come by too. Beedrill, I guess you're back on the team. Before leaving, we hosted a live poll to see what fossil we'd take, and surprisingly the Dome fossil ever so slightly beat out Helix. I hope Lord Helix doesn't forsake us just as we've forsaken him. The route after Mount Moon, Route 4, is really crucial for encounters since you can get an Ekans with the Intimidate ability, which is really incredible for Nuzlockes, but we end up getting a Spearow. Since we already have a Pidgey, I wasn't too thrilled, but I name it Hipster since only hipsters roll through the game with a Fearow instead of a Pidgeot as their bird Pokemon, let's be real. Less than 4 minutes later, our self-fulfilling prophecy shows itself to be true. Seeing that our only two options are to do our next rival fight or face Misty's gym, I decide to do some grinding on this route since I know we'll need it. Tweety, our Pidgey, ends up facing none other than the Spearow and gets crit and dies. Well, at least we have a replacement, I guess. Towards the end of our grind, Duke ends up evolving into a Nidorino, and shortly after, I decide it's time to face our rival at the Nugget Bridge. Now normally this rival fight is absolutely terrifying, but I realized that Geodude quite literally counters everything on Jim Bob's team. The main thing is that Rock Throw is only 90% accuracy and his Pidgeotto tends to spam Sand Attack. Thankfully, we only got Sand Attacked once, so Pidgeotto gets taken down from 2 Rock Throws. Next is Charmander, and realizing there's nothing we want to switch into an Ember and risk a burn, I stay in with Geodude, and despite having its attack lowered by Growl and its accuracy lowered on a 90% accuracy move, he pulls through and gets a crit to one-hit KO Charmander. With the 2 biggest threats taken down, we make quick work of his Abra and Rattata using Spearow and Geodude. Geodude was an absolute MVP here and made the battle way easier than it normally is. On the Nugget Bridge, Bulbasaur evolves into a beautiful Ivysaur, which I'm thinking will be very helpful for Misty. After the Nugget Bridge, 2 new routes open up and we end up getting a Caterpie, which we name Butters, and an Oddish, which we name Legal. Don't ask why. Near the end of Route 25, a hiker trainer surprised me by starting off with a Machop instead of the rock type I had anticipated, which causes me to force a switch into Hipster. Our Peck isn't able to take him out, and he responds with a Karate Chop, which takes Hipster out from more than half health. We now no longer have a flying type. Yikes. I decide to replace Hipster with Oddish, which should be a better choice for Misty's gym anyway. Prior to Misty's battle, I decide to put an Oranberry on Ivysaur and a Personberry on Oddish since I know that both our Pokemon can confuse us. I lead off with Oddish against Staryu and it uses Harden, which lets us hit it with Absorb. It then uses Water Pulse, but thankfully no confusion. Our next Absorb crits the Staryu, making our job much easier, and the Starmie comes out. I decide to stay out with Oddish and Starmie hits us hard with Swift, but we get a little HP back with Absorb. We get hit by Swift again, bringing us down to 13 HP, but thankfully we land the Stun Spore and paralyze it, which I thought would be crucial for a switch. I decide to switch into Ivysaur and get hit instantly with a Water Pulse, but amazingly, no confusion again. I go for Leech Seed just in case the Starmie decides to recover, after which we get hit by a Swift to bring us below half, but our Oranberry activates in addition to the Leech Seed recovery. Vine Whip does surprisingly little, but thanks to the paralysis we're able to outspeed and take down Starmie for our second gym badge. Unfortunately, our celebration is short-lived, however, as the Rocket Grunt in Cerulean uses a Machop against Kong, our Mankey. Our Karate Chop does huge damage against it, so I'm feeling safe, but he gets a crit on his low kick to take out Kong in one hit. We just lost an adamant Mankey who was doing incredibly well for us. Our replacement comes shortly after with our Route 5 encounter, a Meowth, which we catch and name Garfield. It turns out Garfield actually has the pickup ability, which is fantastic, especially in this game where you can't actually grow berries and they're very hard to come by. Instead, we might be able to use pickup to find them. We actually got a rare candy through our first pickup, which is only a 5% chance, so I was pretty thrilled. Route 6 actually doesn't have any new Pokemon for us to catch, so we'll have to keep that in mind for later when we might be able to fish something up instead. Just a quick note here, if you ever come near this Route 6 bug catcher, do not battle him. His Butterfree will hax you to absolute death with paralysis, confusion, At this point, I'm feeling kind of nervous since we only have a level 7 Caterpie as an extra in the box, so we definitely need some new encounters. On Route 11, we had 2 possible encounters, Ekans and Drowsy. Looking at our team, I realized that we have a huge psychic weakness and will be facing Blue's Kadabra, so Drowsy would be helpful in at least walling it. Despite being the rarer encounter, we do get a Drowsy, which we nicknamed Lucid, and we box Oddish for now since we already have a Grass and Poison type on the team. I've always wanted to do a Kanto playthrough with a Hypno, so I'm excited about this. After a bit of grinding, we head on board the SS Anne to get cut. While facing an elderly gentleman, we used Lucid against Nidoran, and despite having super effective confusion, he poisons us, so we're forced to switch for the second Nidoran, where I go into Meowth. Because of set mode, he gets a free poison sting on us, which also poisons us. His Nidoran then uses Double Kick out of nowhere and gets us to 5 HP, which is just in range for us to die to poison. Well, no more pickup, I guess. Rest in peace, sweet feline. Meowth is blasting off again. Oddish, welcome back to the team. After absolutely crushing a poor fisherman, Legal ends up evolving into Gloom, which I think is going to be quite helpful with its bulk and status moves, plus we can evolve it quite quickly once we get to Celadon and get the Leaf Stone. With that, it's time to face our rival again. Geodude is again a savior, taking down Pidgeotto without getting hit by Sand Attack, which is the main concern with a 90% accuracy move like Rock Throw. Blue next sends in Charmeleon, which lowers our attack with Growl, then our Magnitude 7 hits him hard before he does a decent amount of damage to us with Ember, but thankfully no burn. We next get Magnitude 10, which I believe does 150 stab super effective damage. Roxanne is an absolute savage. Next comes Kadabra, our main concern, but Lucid is definitely the play here because I legitimately think Kadabra destroys the entire rest of our team with confusion. Thankfully, Drowsy recently learned Headbutt, which does nearly half damage, but then Kadabra disables it. This becomes a battle of confusions, although we missed 2 of them somehow, and then as soon as we can get Headbutt again, it also misses, causing Kadabra to be able to disable it again when it would have KO'd. We get down to 14 HP, and there's literally nothing I can safely switch into a confusion, so I try to disable his only way of attacking, but he gets a critical hit at the next turn to take Lucid out. Now this was upsetting. So much bad luck between 3 misses, terrible disable timing, and a crit to top it all off, taking out the Pokemon we needed most and that I was most excited to use. This could have very well ended our entire run, but thankfully Beedrill survives a confusion, doesn't get confused, and is able to take out Kadabra since Lucid brought it to low health. What a sacrifice that was. Against Raticate, I decide to switch into Nidorino, and after getting hit by a Hyper Fang, Raticate misses its second one, allowing us to go for Double Kick, and although it wouldn't have killed, we got a crit on the second hit to take him out. That could have very well been a dead Nidorino too. Thank God for that crit. A very tough blue battle, but we managed with 1 death, our beloved Drowsy. Granted, Blue's Raticate also died too, so I mean, hey, an eye for an eye. After getting cut, we're able to take on our 3rd gym, Lieutenant Surge's, where I struggle with the puzzle for like half an hour as always. Come on, come on. For Surge himself, I'm thinking Geodude might pull us through, which is one of the main reasons I really wanted him early on. The only problem is Geodude was getting quite close to the level cap, so just to be safe, I start the battle against Surge with Beedrill instead, which does great with Twin Needle, but Surge uses a super potion, so we're put within crit range at 24 HP. Playing it safe, I go into Ivysaur, who takes out Voltorb after taking half damage. Surge sends out Pikachu, and I switch into Geodude, which is immune to Thunder Wave, and it takes it out with 1 Magnitude. Despite a double team from his Raichu, our Magnitude 7 takes it out in 1 hit as well. Geodude is an absolute beast. 3rd gym badge down. After the gym, we have a long journey to Celadon where a lot of exciting things happen. First, we needed to get Flash for Rock Tunnel, which means we have to go through Diglett's Cave. Thankfully, we don't run into any level 30 plus Arena Trap Dugtrios, which we couldn't catch anyway as per the level cap and which would likely end our run. And of course, instead we get a Diglett encounter which we catch, nicknamed Whack, and put in the box for now. God forbid if anything happens to Geodude, this would be an okay replacement. On Route 9, we almost lost it all because we got stuck having to backtrack through several trainers despite already having tons of weak Pokemon. I decide now's the time to evolve Nidorino since we got Horn Attack anyway, so we use a Moonstone to get a beastly Nidoking, which helps us just barely make it back to safety. Our Route 9 encounter ends up being an Ekans, which we call Sneck, but it doesn't have Intimidate, making it essentially useless. Sorry Arbok fans, don't kill me, I love Arbok just as much as the next guy, but he needs an evolution or something. On Route 10 we pick up a Voltorb, which we name Pokeball. I know, original. It is the fastest Pokemon in the game when it evolves, and we did need an electric type, so not bad. In the rock tunnel, our encounter was an Onyx, but Pokeball after Great Ball fails to catch him and he ends up getting KO'd by the Leech Seed that I set up. Whenever we don't get a backup Pokemon, it's of course not a great thing, but Onyx is kinda terrible anyway. Right outside the rock tunnel exit, we face a flying type trainer who helps Geodude evolve into a beastly Graveler, which we also end up teaching Rock Slide using the Rock Slide tutor in Rock Tunnel, which my chat actually reminded me of. I forgot he existed. Upon getting to Celadon, we had a massive debate about what our Celadon encounter was going to be, as we could spend hours in the game corner trying to get Dratini, Scyther, or Porygon. We could eventually fish in the pond outside the old dude's house for a beautiful Grimer, but in the end we decided to take the Gift Eevee and box it for now, since that gives us options for whenever we need a water, fire, or electric type, the last of which I'm thinking might be the best option at this moment. Erica's gym is up next, and I'm thinking it might be a tough challenge for us given that all our Pokemon are kind of neutral or weak to our Pokemon. But just before we head in, we remembered something. We have another encounter to the west of Celadon on Route 16 where we can get Fly. Turns out there are Doduo in this grass, which I think was changed from the originals, since I only recall being able to get them after Cycling Road, which we can't access yet. Regardless, we end up getting one as our encounter, which we name Cerberus, and it has a jolly nature which is honestly perfect. Dodrio is arguably my favorite of the three normal flying types, so I'm thrilled. We can't yet use Fly as an HM, but we can use it in battle still. Being greedy as ever, I decide to go to Route 7 for another encounter, and despite finding a Growlithe, which is an incredible Pokemon, it roars us away before we can catch it. That's a big oof. Either way, Doduo is able to absolutely destroy the trainers in Erica's gym with ease. Erica herself starts off with Victory Bell, and we're able to 2-hit KO it with Fly after luckily dodging Stun Spore, which would have made this battle much more troublesome. Erica's Tangela also survives a Fly and uses Ingrain in addition to a Hyper Potion, but eventually we take it out with a combination of Peck and Fly. Vileplume is up next, and Fly does over half, but it hits us with Stun Spore to paralyze us. It now outspeeds us due to the paralysis and hits us with Acid, which does over half, and I made the mistake of using Fly, which gives us 2 turns to get paralyzed, at which point another Acid would immediately take us out. But thankfully, we make it through to KO for the win. Wow. Between the early missed Stun Spore and paralysis not affecting us, we were quite lucky not to lose Doduo. 4 gym badges are in the books, and I'm liking the way our team is looking. Next, we take on the Team Rocket's hideout in the game corner, and in the middle of a relatively smooth run through the place, one of the Grunt's coughings avoids a Stun Spore, hits us with Sludge, and then we're able to paralyze it, but despite that, it breaks through paralysis, self-destructs out of nowhere at full health, and gets a critical hit to take out Gloom in 1 hit. That was incredibly unnecessary. That coughing apparently determined that legal was in fact not allowed. Gloom was a solid tanky member of our team for a while. May he rest in peace. I very much regret not evolving him sooner with a Leaf Stone now that we're in Celadon, but I'm still not sure it would have survived a crit self-destruct. At least now we have Ivysaur, who kind of fulfills the same role on the team. After that heartbreaking death, I decide to pull all the stops out with a secret weapon, a Magikarp we had caught earlier and put in the daycare. It turns out it got to level 20 over our journey so far, but that means upon evolution it can't get Bite, but still, we now have Sushi the Gyarados on our team to replace Gloom. Turns out Gyarados was a great option, especially against our first battle with Giovanni, as a combination of Intimidate and the Water Pulse TM takes out Onyx and Rhyhorn with ease. I decide to switch into Graveler to be safe against Kangaskhan, but despite resisting his attacks, Graveler is somehow outmatched, so I send in Duke for a tanky Pokemon to finish off Kangaskhan with an Outspeed and Brick Break. There's no rest for the wicked, so we head to Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town for our next rival fight. After an Intimidate on Pidgeotto, we take it out with ease, and Blue sends out his Gyarados against ours with the Intimidate, so we switch into Ivysaur to try to put him to sleep. He uses Thrash, which is kind of scary, and our Sleep Powder misses, so he hits us twice and we're suddenly within crit range, but he gets confused. We're a bit limited in terms of switches, but I send in Gyarados to Intimidate him now, and take him out with Secret Power after he hits himself in confusion 3 times in a row. Sushi is definitely the superior Gyarados. We also get a lucky paralysis on his Execute, which is taken down with ease. Kadabra comes out next, and I know that he just has Charmeleon left, so we decide to Hyper Beam the living out of Kadabra just to be safe, which we bought as a TM from the Celadon department store. Charmeleon is an easy KO with Water Pulse, and that's the end of Gym Bob for now. After the battle, we get our Pokemon Tower encounter, a Ghastly, which we nickname Burrito. I don't know why either. As cool as Cubone is, I'm glad we got Ghastly since we already have a ground type in Graveler. Upon making it near the top of the tower, for some reason I was moving too fast and forgot about the automatic initiation of the Marowak battle at the top, and we were really weak going into this battle. We had Doduo out in front and Gyarados was weak so we couldn't intimidate it, so I switch into Ivysaur, but Razor Leaf doesn't do nearly as much as I thought. He then uses Leer, which means that we have to switch Ivysaur out, and I have nothing good against it, so I go into Graveler hoping that it would resist another Headbutt, but it goes for Focus Energy. Now, I try and play around it by switching into Gyarados for the Intimidate, which goes off smoothly. Now, thinking it will go for Headbutt for sure since Gyarados is a flying type, I switch back into Graveler feeling safe, but it goes for the ground type Bone Meringue when a flying type Gyarados was in, and it double crits us on top of that to take out Roxanne instantly. The AI is either really stupid or really smart and predicted the switch. I'm gonna go with the former. That was super unfortunate, as without Graveler, I sincerely think we would have lost this run so far since he provided us with so many crucial resistances. Thankfully, Ivysaur gets a crit on its next Razor Leaf to take the damn thing out, but man oh man, that was such an unnecessary loss. I decide to take the Eevee out of the box to replace Graveler and use a Thunderstone on it to evolve it into Jolteon. We have needed some electric coverage, so I think Jolteon could be a good option here. I wanted to get Thunderbolt on it via TM since for some reason it doesn't learn it by level up, but our Game Corner pursuit didn't go that well and we don't have enough money for 4,000 coins. All I received was a gambling addiction. I opt for Shockwave for the time being. Now, Cycling Road is terrifying. There are a lot of coughings and wheezings with self-destruct potential, so I temporarily take Ghastly on the team to help, but it turns out he doesn't even take Sludge that well and it's very hard to predict when those self-destructs will come. We did an incredible job making it through this route, but right near the end, one of the wheezings gets an immediate critical hit Sludge to take out Doduo in one hit from full health. Now that is a painful loss. I love the Dodrio line, and Cerberus was so close to evolving and had the jolly nature, plus we lost our flyer since Gyarados can't learn fly for some reason. And I mean, he's got 2 heads, so it's double the pain. We lost 2 children. After making it to Fuchsia City, bruised and battered, we hit up the Safari Zone for some encounters. There are 4 areas to the Safari Zone, and since catching Pokemon is so difficult in here, we opt for 4 encounter possibilities, 1 for each area. In the central area, we catch an Execute, which we nickname Sam I Am. Not only do I love Exeggutor, but we finally get some more psychic coverage after Drowsy's death. In the west, amazingly enough, we find a Kangaskhan as our first encounter, and we actually caught it on our first ball. That is an unreal Nuzlocke catch. Big mama it is. In the north, we actually managed to catch a Rhyhorn, which we nicknamed Giovanni, just to taunt him. Also a great catch since it replaces Graveler quite well. Unfortunately, we fail our last encounter, a Nidoran female, but hey, we can't really ask more from the Safari Zone. That was a great haul. Rhyhorn ends up taking our last team slot since I figure it'll go great against Koga. While grinding on Route 15, we pick up a Venonat encounter, which we call Fluffy. After the trio of routes, I decide we'll take on the trainers in Koga's gym, and it might have been a mistake. I put Beedrill out in front thinking we'd encounter a series of maybe like level 34 Drowsies, but I forgot that the very first trainer has a level 38 Hypno. That's not even poison type, man. I mean, come on. We can't switch anything in, and after chat convinced me it can't possibly have Psychic since Hypno doesn't learn it until level 49 or something, I go for Twin Needle, and Hypno does indeed use Psychic to take out Beedrill in one hit. Honestly, I'm surprised our king lasted this long. Everyone was, so we'll have to hold a royal funeral for him. Beedrill would have been very useful for Koga too. Big Mama, welcome to the team. In some much needed good news, Ivysaur finally evolves into Venusaur, which should be quite helpful. In the Sofco building, however, we lose Jolteon to a self-destructing Weezing since we barely don't take it out with our Shockwave. Not only did I think we could take it out in one hit and it was too risky to switch anyway, but we've never had a Weezing use self-destruct in this entire run, never mind from full health. That one hurts, since Jolteon could have very well swept Lorelei later on. We decide to add Samayan to the team, teach it both Psychic and Giga Drain, and evolve it with a Leaf Stone. At least we have some Psychic coverage now. After grinding Exeggutor up using the Versus Seeker and the Fighting Dojo, it's time to face Koga. Knowing that Psychic can do some damage, I start off with Exeggutor and use Reflect to defend against self-destructs and poison moves, followed by Psychic to take down his level 37 Coughing in one hit. A good start. Exeggutor's got some power. He next sends out his Muck, and I go into Nidoking so he can't get Toxiced or hit with a super effective Sludge. His Muck starts minimizing as I go for Dig, and we miss twice in a row. He keeps using Minimize and Acid Armor to increase his defense, and suddenly I'm kind of getting nervous. Nidoking pulls through and brings him down to the red while we have just 31 HP remaining, but then Koga uses a Hyper Potion. Uh-oh. What followed was one of the top 5 most insane battles I've ever seen in my 22 years of playing Pokemon. Nidoking gets 2 weeks, so we switch in Gyarados to intimidate the Muck, but Gyarados gets instantly poisoned by a sludge attack. I realize Venusaur's Leech Seed is probably the play here, but I missed like 5 times in a row and Venusaur becomes too weak to keep in. I go for the double intimidate with Gyarados and then am forced to switch again, this time into Kangaskhan. I land a Fake Out, but then even Big Mama is Toxic. I triple intimidate with Gyarados, then switch into Rhyhorn, who also gets Toxic. Eventually, Muck seems to run out of Sludge power points, which means he has no attack to hit us with, but nearly all of our Pokemon are poisoned. I'm thinking we've lost the run because Struggle will eventually come too, and we just can't hit him. I realize after the Acid Armors that Psychic is our only hope using Special Attack, but he uses Toxic on Executor too, but we finally hit a Psychic and it brings him to the red. Executor is going to die to poison though, so I switch into Venusaur since it can't get poisoned after all. We get down to where our party looks like this, keep in mind, and he has 2 other Pokemon remaining after Muck, and then Koga uses another Hyper Potion on it. All of our hard work gone instantly, and everything on our team is nearly dead. At this point, Leech Seed is our only hope, and that's assuming he doesn't get Struggle before we actually pull it off. Amazingly, our 3rd Leech Seed activates just in time. I switch into Nidoking since he's the better option for Koga's remaining Pokemon, heal him up to full using Leech Seed, and then switch back into Venusaur so he can get health too. Miraculously, the Muck finally goes down. But it's not over yet. Coughing comes out and I'm fearing the self-destruct, but I Leech Seed regardless. It hits us hard with Sludge, so I go into Sleep Powder and thankfully it lands. I use Sleep Powder again to stall and just in case he wakes up since that self-destruct would be brutal, and Koga used a full heal ironically enough, so we reset the sleep immediately. Those are some pure strats right here. The Coughing goes down safely while asleep and Wheezing comes in, hits Venusaur hard, but full health Nidoking is able to come in and take him out with the help from Leech Seed. My god, I don't know how we pulled off the win in the first place, never mind not having a single death. Our team looked like this, while Koga had 3 full health Pokemon remaining, including a max evasion and max defense Muck. Wow, just wow. It's time to return to Silphco and take on our rival again. Since he now has mostly fully evolved Pokemon, I'm a little nervous, but sending out Gyarados with Intimidate against his Pidgeot is very helpful, although we do take some damage and get our attack lowered by Feather Dance. Blue sends out his own Gyarados and intimidates ours, at which point I switch into Kangaskhan so we can hit him with Fake Out before finishing him off with 2 strengths. His now fully evolved Charizard comes out next, and with some damage on Kangaskhan, I'm not feeling too safe, so I switch into Rhyhorn. He goes for Smokescreen and then Flamethrower, which hits us really hard, but thankfully our Rock Blast hits despite the accuracy drop, and it hits 3 times to finish him off. That was close. In comes Execute, and I'm keeping his Alakazam in mind, so I go into Kangaskhan to tank the confusion before being able to take Execute down with well below half health after an unfortunate Stun Spore paralysis. The Alakazam comes out next, and I am terrified given our current position, but I figure Sam-I-Am should be able to tank anything that he throws at us. Paralysis is my #1 priority, and even though it has Synchronize, I think it's worth it. He starts using Calm Mind, and I'm like, oh dear lord, but I figure with Giga Drain we can at least get some recovery back. Thankfully at this point, one thing I forgot is that its only attacking move is Future Sight, so despite its recover, we managed to whittle it down before it can hurt us. A few very close calls, but a manageable battle overall, if only because Alakazam didn't have Psychic yet. After getting the Lapras as our Saffron City encounter, it's time to face Giovanni. I use Duke against his Nidorino to show him who's Papa, and Dig takes him out in 2 turns. Kangaskhan comes in and I send out Gyarados for the much needed Intimidate, but it uses Tail Whip, so I switch into our own Kangaskhan for the Fake Out. Even after the Intimidate, Kangaskhan is doing huge damage to us with Mega Punch, so I risk going for the Poison Point activation, but it doesn't work, so I get the double Intimidate off with Sushi to be safe. Even a couple more secret powers don't do the trick, but thankfully we outspeed on the last turn to take it out. Man oh man, that thing was tough. Rhyhorn is an easy KO with Sam-I-Am's Giga Drain, and Nidoqueen goes down to a super effective Psychic for the win. After a bit of grinding, I decide to head to Sabrina's gym, and one of our fan-favorite Pokemon, Big Mama the Kangaskhan, gets decimated by a random trainer's Ghastly who uses Destiny Bond on us. Destiny Bond. All my homies hate Destiny Bond. Realizing how useful a bulky normal type was, we head to the one Snorlax we're allowed to catch since we caught Doduo on the other one's route. The Snorlax proves to be a very troublesome catch and we almost lose Gyarados to it, so I throw a last minute Master Ball since we're not allowed to catch Legendaries anyway and name it Smiter after a very generous subgifter in the chat. On Route 19 we get a Horsey encounter which we catch and nickname Sylph. Kingdra's my mascot after all, so hey, it had to be done. After some grinding on the water routes and buying the Shadow Ball TM at the game corner for Snorlax since it is a physical move in this game, it's time for Sabrina. Snorlax I'm feeling will be very useful here, so I lead with it against Kadabra. Shadow Ball is an instant one-hit KO, and Sabrina brings in Mr. Mime next. Mr. Mime sets a barrier instantly, which allows it to live a Shadow Ball and hit us with a Psybeam, but thankfully we don't get confused and can take it out with another. Venomoth comes out next, and we took the Kadabra's Future Sight attack. I switch into Rhyhorn thinking Rock Blast would be perfect, but we get confused on the Psybeam. Venomoth brings us below half, and then we hit ourselves in confusion, meaning Rhyhorn is now within crit range, so I have to switch into Gyarados, who also gets confused by Psybeam. I go for Secret Power, and we make it through confusion, and we're hit by another Psybeam. Hyper Beam would be useful here, but that would give Alakazam a free move, so I have to go for Secret Power. We snap out of confusion and then get hit once more, but then Sabrina uses a Hyper Potion on Venomoth. Secret Power gets a high roll, but I decide to switch into Snorlax again so I can prepare adequately for Alakazam by first using Yawn on Venomoth and then using Rest. Everybody's gonna take a nice nap time. Thankfully, we get the rest off despite being confused by Supersonic, but Sabrina uses a full heal on Venomoth. We snap out of confusion upon waking up miraculously and can finally take it down. Alakazam comes in next, and after the rest, I'm feeling confident. Amazingly, Alakazam just uses Calm Mind and we can Shadow Ball to smash it in one hit to get our 6th gym badge. Snorlax, definitely the MVP in this battle. Leading towards Blaine's gym, we pick up a few new encounters from new areas, including a Psyduck from the Seafoam Islands we name Misty, a Tangela from Route 21 we name Spaghetti, and a Growlithe from the Cinnabar Mansion we name Adam after one of our mods who spent like 33 years shiny hunting a Growlithe in Let's Go. After some grinding and picking up the key to the Cinnabar Gym, I'm still wondering why Blaine locked him and his trainers in there. It's time for our 7th badge. Since Blaine's Arcanine does have Roar, I actually make a risky decision to dump both Exeggutor and Venusaur in the box, since if they get roared in on set mode, that could be a nasty time. Blaine starts off with Growlithe, and I lead with Gyarados for the Intimidate and type advantage, although Growlithe also intimidates us, but it doesn't really matter since we'll be using Surf anyway. Growlithe goes down in one hit and Ponyta comes in. I use Surf again and it KOs the Ponyta as well, and in comes Rapidash. Now I want to get Gyarados out of here so I can intimidate the Arcanine when it comes out, so I switch into Rhyhorn, but Rapidash goes for a Fire Blast, which does nearly half despite being resisted, but thankfully no burn. Given that we're within crit or burn range, I decide to switch into Snorlax, who tanks Fire Blast with his Thick Fat ability and doesn't get burned. Rapidash then uses Bounce to avoid our attack and hits us hard and paralyzes. He uses Bounce again, and I'm starting to realize Rest would be a good idea here while he's up in the air. He Fire Spins us, which basically negates our leftovers, and eventually we get a Shadow Ball off with Sleep Talk, which does less than half. Another Fire Blast brings us to half and gets the burn, so we can't take it out with Body Slam even. Rest saves us though, and Sleep Talk finally gets another attack to take it out. That was crazy. Arcanine then comes in and I use our Gyarados Intimidate strat. Surf does over half and he misses his Fire Blast, so we can take him out for our 7th badge. Given that Blaine is known as being one of the easier gym leaders, that was a bit chaotic, I'm not gonna lie. After a brief swing through the first 3 of the Sevi Islands where we pick up a Ponyta, Tentacool, and Machop, and the chat challenged me to take on Moltres while we were weak, and we almost lost everything since Rock Blast actually didn't kill somehow. That flaming rubber chicken can be a bit scary. It's time to take on the 8th and final gym. Now, Giovanni is known to be one of the easier gym leaders at this point due to his common weaknesses and the fact that they didn't give him Kangaskhan nor Rhydon in this battle. Very weird. I lead with Gyarados for Intimidate, and Surf takes out his Rhyhorn immediately. His highest level Pokemon, a second Rhyhorn at level 50, suffers the same fate. Good old 4 times weaknesses. Forgetting if Dugtrio has a Brock move or not, I play it safe and switch into Venusaur, which tanks a Slash and gets a crit Razor Leaf to take it out. Nidoqueen comes out and I decide to Leech Seed it, after which it hits us with an Earthquake. Secret Power does a decent amount of damage to it, and it seems we're kind of level with Nidoqueen thanks to Leech Seed, but we get a lucky Paralysis on one of our Secret Powers, which ensures that we outspeed. Giovanni does Hyper Potion it after this though, so I switch into Sam-I-Am for more guaranteed damage, and even though he uses a full heal and body slams us, we make it happen with Psychic. His final Pokemon is Nidoking, and just in case, I go to Gyarados for the Intimidate. Surf barely doesn't kill, but after Thrash Confusion and the Hyper Potion, we take the Nidoking down for our 8th and final badge. Now at this point, I was feeling quite confident, but perhaps overly so as we head to Route 22 for our next rival battle. I use our standard Gyarados Intimidate strategy against Pidgeot, and thanks to a lucky first turn paralysis, we take it down with ease. Rhyhorn next comes out and is a one-hit with Surf. Man, this is gonna be easy, right? In comes Execute, and I'm fearing the Stun Spore on Gyarados since we'll need him for later, and apparently it was for good reason as he hits us with it after we take him to just about half health with Secret Power. He then starts charging up Solar Beam, so I switch into Exeggutor, who tanks it well and responds with Giga Drain to take him out. In comes Charizard, and I immediately switch to Snorlax, who of course has Thick Fat. Unfortunately, my greatest fears were realized as Flamethrower burns on the first turn. We get below half health and do hardly anything with Body Slam, and we're now in crit range, but we need Snorlax for later, so I rest to cure the burn and restore our health after being brought to 43 HP in the red. Sleep Talk gives us Shadow Ball on the first turn of sleep, which isn't great, but we get a much needed crit. Our second Sleep Talk gives us Rest though, which does nothing, and now Charizard is in Blaze territory, meaning his Flamethrower does more. Out of nowhere, his next Blaze boosted Flamethrower also crits, bringing us down to just 31 HP before we wake up and take him out with Body Slam. That was way too close for my liking, and now I don't know how we deal with Alakazam. Gyarados comes in next, and I have to switch, so in comes Venusaur since he doesn't have a flying move. Leech Seed hits successfully, and we can kind of stall him out from here. Unfortunately, we're left with Venusaur on the field when Alakazam comes out, so I switch into Exeggutor. Alakazam Calm Minds on the switch, and I am petrified, so I go for Stun Spore so that something can outspeed him perhaps. Psychic does huge damage on Exeggutor beforehand though, and Synchronize paralyzes us as well, of course. We might be within range of death now. With Gyarados paralyzed and Snorlax weak, we have nothing to switch in here, so I click Giga Drain and hope for the best. Amazingly, Alakazam stays paralyzed and we don't, so we get a bit of health back, enough to survive a non-crit Psychic at least. Miraculously on the next turn, we outspeed and get another Giga Drain off, and it turns out he went for Disable, which not only doesn't do any damage and has negative priority, but it also fails. Oh my god. We make it through paralysis yet again, and boom! Critical hit. I was actually screaming in disbelief here. Sam I Am is the absolute MVP, hands down. That was insane. During Victory Road, we encounter an Onyx and get the redeem on our previously failed Onyx encounter by catching it. We name it Samurai after a viewer who dropped an insane 10,000 bits on us. While grinding, we finally evolve Rhyhorn into Rhydon at level 52 so we could get Earthquake by level up so we can give the actual Earthquake TM to Nidoking. Victory Road was full of close calls as all the trainers are surprisingly tough, but we make it through without a death. After a bunch of team upgrades using TMs and whatnot, it's time. The Elite Four. For the Elite Four, we're using Lance's Ace as a level cap, which is level 60. Meaning for Lorelei, I put our Pokemon around level 57 to 58 so they don't level up too far before Lance. Lorelei is a bit of trouble for us since we don't have electric types, and although our grass types would be super effective, she also has a lot of ice moves. So I decided to go into Gyarados, who now has Dragon Dance, since at the moment she can do neutral damage to us. Dugong starts the hail right away, which is definitely not great for us, but after a Dragon Dance we take it down with 2 secret powers. Her Cloyster then resets the hail and sets spikes on us, and realizing it can't do much, I go for another Dragon Dance before it uses Dive, so I get another one off while it's underwater. Kind of missed the timing on that one. We take out Cloyster with under half health now, and Slowbro comes in, whose physical bulk allows it to live a secret power, but it just uses Amnesia, so it's an easy KO. Jinx comes out next, but thanks to Dragon Dance we outspeed it and OHKO it with secret power. Lapras is her final Pokemon, and Secret Power does over half and paralyzes, but she hits us with an Ice Beam to bring us really low. I wanted to go for Hyper Beam to be safe, but she could have healed the Lapras and we'd be giving her a free turn, but thankfully one more Secret Power just barely does the job. A nice clean sweep there from Sushi. Now here I was preaching how easily Exeggutor runs through Bruno, and well, it was just a touch scarier than I thought. Giga Drain takes out Onyx easily, Hitmonchan goes down to Psychic after a small hit on us, Hitmonlee is the same situation although it brings us under half with Mega Kick, and here Onyx outsped us to hit us with Double Edge and bring us to 69 HP. Nice. But Giga Drain helps us to get a lot of health back. Machamp comes out next, and Gyarados would have been great, but Rock Tomb could really hurt us, especially with the outspeed. I go for Psychic instead, and it's a one-hit KO to finish off Bruno. Not a bad start at all here. Next is Agatha, and yet again I was preaching about a certain Pokemon on our team, this time Snorlax with Shadow Ball and Ghost Immunity. Agatha tends to put Pokemon to sleep, but I was like, hey, Snorlax enjoys the rest and had Sleep Talk anyway, so it shouldn't be too bad. Agatha's first Gengar confuses us and we hit ourselves right away, which is not good, and then it starts double teaming and we hit ourselves again. After a Shadow Ball miss, we finally hit it on the next turn to take it out, and leftovers have helped us get back to near full health. Golbat comes in next, so I send out Nidoking so we can't get poisoned. Duke gets confused, but we had a Lumberry on it. Earlier activation than I would have liked, but oh well. Ice Beam gets a crit and takes the Golbat out. She next sends in Haunter, and I decide to switch back into Snorlax, and oh god, I can't even describe what happened here. It mean looks us so we can't escape, then puts us to sleep with Hypnosis. Now, just watch what happens here. It uses Curse, so we're getting hurt every turn in addition to being asleep and trapped on the field. I use Sleep Talk, but Snorlax wakes up on the first turn, so it does nothing. Basically, Haunter keeps repeating this strategy, and our timing with Sleep Talk is terrible. And even if we do get it off, we keep choosing Rest or Body Slam instead of Shadow Ball. Even the one time I try to be smart and predict the Hypnosis, it misses, so we use Sleep Talk for no reason. I can't even begin to describe how unlucky we were here. We got brought down to 6 HP after the curse damage, but amazingly the Haunter misses Hypnosis and we were able to get the rest off to heal us fully. But with the combination of Dream Eater, Nightmare, Mean Look, and Hypnosis combined with our terrible luck and Sleep Talk never choosing Shadow Ball even once, Smiter goes down. Smiter's favorite activity was sleeping, so rest well. In an absolute fury, I send out Exeggutor and get put to sleep, mean looked and cursed, but thankfully Sam I Am wakes up and blasts him with a Psychic. Seriously, that Haunter. Arbok is an easy KO with Duke's Earthquake, and her second Gengar gets wrecked by Intimidate since both Ghost and Poison are physical types in this game. But it gets a critical hit and Poison on Sludge Bomb, causing us to have to switch into Venusaur to finish it off with Leech Seed and Sleep Powder after waking up. That was brutal. It's on to Lance with only 5 Pokemon in our party and our main neutral switch-in being dead. Yikes. For Lance's Gyarados, I send in Venusaur, who is able to effectively take him down with Leech Seed and Sleep Powder even despite a full restore since he doesn't have any flying moves. In comes Aerodactyl, so I send in Giovanni, who is defensively great against flying and rock types. We miss our first Rock Blast, but the second one luckily gets 3 hits to take it down. Giovanni actually defends well against Dragonairs too, and the Earthquake takes the first one out instantly. The second Dragonair hits us fairly hard with Outrage and also just barely survives Earthquake on like 1 HP, so it takes us below half before Dragonite comes in. We are definitely in kill range of an Outrage, so I'm forced to switch, but nothing takes Outrage well, especially since it's a special move in this game, so Intimidate doesn't help. Regardless, I send in Gyarados, who I think can at least tank it well, but it gets a crit, which does 3/4 damage on us. My god. That means I have to switch again while waiting for the Confusion to activate, so I go into Venusaur. The Confusion still doesn't activate and we would be dead to crit, but at this point I have to risk it, so I go for Leech Seed and thankfully we survive with just 47 HP. Now that he's confused, I switch into Exeggutor to paralyze him with Stun Spore after he hits himself in Confusion. He hits us with an Outrage, which does over half, but I decide that now that he's paralyzed, it's now or never, since anything will outspeed, so I switch into Duke, who tanks an Outrage, which the Dragonite snapped out of Confusion and got through Paralysis to get off, but thankfully, Ice Beam does the job. Wow, I can't believe we managed that after the crit on Gyarados. With that, it's time for the champion, and oh damn it. I enter the room forgetting it's not like when you enter Lance's room where it kind of takes you to him automatically but then stops you in front of him. No, we have to battle Blue right away, which means I accidentally led Venusaur against Pidgeot. Oh my god, I think my IQ is literally 7. I switch to Gyarados right away and take a free Aerial Ace, but get the Intimidate off. I decide to switch into Rhydon since we'll need Gyarados more later, and we can't Dragon Dance now anyway since Pidgeot has Whirlwind. After Sand attacks, we finally get a Double Edge and Rock Blast off, but it does little to nothing after a Feather Dance attack drop. So I switch back into Gyarados, and amazingly, Blue switches into Rhydon. Wow, what a prediction. Yes, prediction. Elite strats right there. Surf KOs the Rhydon thankfully, and Pidgeot survives a secret power just barely and then gets full restored, so I send Rhydon back in now that his attack is normal. One Rock Blast definitely does the job this time. Exeggutor is next, and we go through a massive Light Screen, Sleep Powder, Giga Drain, and Egg Bomb Exeggutor versus Exeggutor battle. We have nothing we can really switch in, and Exeggutor was supposed to be our Alakazam strat. This is not good. His Exeggutor outclasses ours though, although I hate to admit it, but I realize in the process he has no psychic moves, so I send in Venusaur to put him to sleep, after which I take the risk and Dragon Dance with Gyarados because I realize we'll need to outspeed Alakazam to have a chance. The Exeggutor doesn't wake up, thank God, and amazingly 2 secret powers does the job. In comes Alakazam, and the Dragon Dance speed boost absolutely saves us as we KO it with Hyper Beam to take no chances. His Gyarados comes in and intimidates us, so I make the critical decision to sack Sam I Am so we can return back with Intimidate since Sam will be useless against Charizard at this health. Rest well, my triple egg-headed friend. After a couple thrashes, we're at 47 HP, and I go for Hyper Beam for the KO on Gyarados, but it misses, but unbelievably, Blue's Gyarados breaks through confusion and uses Dragon Rage, which doesn't KO, and we're left with just 7 HP to take it out. If he used Thrash there, that was the end. Unfortunately, due to the Hyper Beam recharge, Charizard comes in and immediately takes us out. A worthy sacrifice though. Sushi took on his ultimate rival and won, though it costed him his life. With just 3 Pokemon left, I send in Nidoking, and Poison Point activates on the Charizard. To avoid a full restore use since Nidoking can't KO from here, I send in Giovanni for the Rock Blast KO, but he goes for Fire Blast immediately, which does about half, but doesn't burn. This is it. This Rock Blast needs to hit. Another Fire Blast brings us to the red, but Rock Blast hits. That is it. We've done it. Champion Jim Bob has been defeated. What a run. We've completed a hardcore Nuzlocke of FireRed with 3 Pokemon remaining and 15 deaths in total. That was a ton of fun, and I especially love doing it live with my Twitch audience. We're going to be doing some more challenges like this over there, so if you want to experience these runs live, make sure to follow me on Twitch. The link will be in the description and pinned comment down below. If you enjoyed, drop a like down below to help the video out, and leave a comment letting me know what kind of run we should do next. I'm thinking a monotype hardcore Nuzlocke of some sort will be a lot of fun. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter for updates, link also down below, and I'll see you guys next time for another Pokemon Challenge video.